Okay, well, hello everybody once again. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for Monday, the 15th of June, 2020. Well, I just finished Esoteric Influences, so check that out if you would. I'd love you to do that. I'm not, again, I've moved that out of here and into its own video. Both will be appearing on the left side panel of the blog over at Stepping Aside, and I'm steppingaside.com. So look for them there. I finally figured out how to do that again. It's not glitchy anymore. I was putting the tarot reading over there on the side panel and not taking up, post space in the center. And I don't know, it got glitchy, and I just stopped. And so rather than trying to figure it out, I have to wonder, though, and I said this in the other video, I wonder if it happened when WordPress switched over to Gutenberg, their new block style editor, which if you don't use WordPress, it's nice. And if you have a blog and you're considering moving it to a different, type of a platform, WordPress is really versatile, and I like the new editor. So I don't know. I sort of started working with it. If I normally what I do over on Medium is I'll just post something, cross post something from the blog, but sometimes I just write there, and I do that now more than I used to. And so it would just be something you'd see there and not on the blog. Well, that's when I first discovered the whole idea of a block editor, because that's kind of what they have. And so it was, I was kind of already used to that, working in blocks like that, and definable, in other words, paragraphs. But you can put, they have these little macros, basically, is what they remind me of what a macro used to be, what used to be called a macro. But it basically, you could have like a picture and then something to write on the side of it. There's all kinds of stuff, so it's very cool, and I can just do some fun things with it. So I don't know, I recommend it. So. Anyway, I don't know why I got off onto that, but I've had other people talk to me about it online, and so, well, because they're like, yeah, I don't know what to do. I want to write a blog. What do I do? Well, choose your platform. Choose how complicated you want it to be, and eventually see that, because it grows. Your blogs will grow into these behemoths that you're like, how did I do that? How did it get like that? So anyway, so we have the moon in Aries right now. I did say that I would say a few things about the esoteric influences, but the moon's in Aries, and so we're going to want to be a little careful, be tactful today, and all of that. Don't take the bait. Use whatever motivation you can, though, to get things done, but don't expect others to necessarily follow suit, because it is a Monday, and Mondays can be difficult for people. It is a moon day, so we're talking cycles and emotions and all of that. So, well, let's go ahead and take our first three cards on this 6 energy day, and this 6 energy month, and this 22 energy year. Lots of higher self stuff coming in today. So let's see what we have. We'll take our first 3 cards. If you haven't been here before, welcome. I appreciate you stopping by. And to everyone who's come back, thank you, thank you. And I take the first 3 cards. I take the 13th one each time for randomness sake. And if we have to add more, we will. And if not, we'll move on to the Elder Futhark rune. And then we'll close out by creating a geomancy rune. So let's go ahead and get started. I planted borage yesterday, because when you have borage forever, and you have to move it around. Otherwise, it's just, it's crazy. So anyway, but bees love it, and I'm a beekeeper, so borage got planted everywhere yesterday. Here we have the 6 of Cups. Cups represents the water element and our emotions, compassion. We'll talk about this guy, though. Typically, and again, it's going to depend on what the other cards are, but because you can't always just look at a card individually. Sometimes you got to look at them in relation to others, especially with court cards. You want to do that, because court cards, if you've got more than one, they might be talking to each other, so you might want to move them around and see if there's a conversation there that they're having. some kind of interaction. You know, I mean, it might not be a conversation. It could be one supporting the other, there for support, you know, egging the other on, maybe, that kind of thing. So you want to look at the interactions between the cards. It's always at the same place that happens. Always between the 7 and the 8. Here we have the 2 of Pentacles. Ooh, having to make a decision here about our material life, our foundation, our home, our work. The earth element is our physical expression and form, all that includes, you know, so our career, our home life, our home itself, the community at large. Last card. Ah, the King of Pentacles. We might need another card. The King in all of his finery, all of his abundance, all around him with his back to the kingdom. All right, we're going to put him in the center. Now, those of you who have been here before know that I am thoroughly unimpressed with kings and the emperor. Not particularly impressed with the Hierophant either. I view this as indicative of an imbalance in polarity, both in terms of who we are as spirit focused into form, vis-a-vis the form itself. We forget, and some of that's by design so that we can focus on doing whatever we need to do with respect to the theme we've chosen, the overall theme we've chosen coming into form. So maybe we forget that we are actually spirit driving the ship, and we want to work out that whole, how does the ego, how does the personality try to deal with all of this here. But in truth, it represents a struggle that is oppressive in nature. Okay? So in other words, the male-dominated aspect of self, the masculine resonance within, got too full of itself and left the feminine to fend for herself and to try to wade through the nonsense that the masculine side of self creates. You've got too much projective energy, in other words, and not enough receptive energy to balance things out. If you think of a bird with a broken wing, well, we've been a bird with a broken wing long enough. And we're not flying in any direction together because we got one wing that's tied behind our back, you see. And so we flap around, but that's all we do, all right? So this is my issue with the king aspect of self, because the king aspect of self is typically a service to self individual. It's not service to others. Without the queen, without the empress, without that feminine influence, the king doesn't, the king is directionless. Not so with the queen, mind you. Not so with the feminine resonance here. That's not going to happen with that. But the downside of that is maybe we don't react when we should. Okay, maybe we let too much pass. So societies that don't have any friction, inner nathes or any friction within to manifest. There's no argument. There's no discussion. There's only agreement. So when you have only the receptive presence, that's what you tend to have, is only agreement. So nothing changes. You know, nobody says, hey, wait a minute, that's nonsense. Why are we doing that? You know? And then people are like, what? What do you mean? You know, well, that's how things change. That's how things advance. So if you have only one side active, the whole thing's going to be impacted in a way that you don't need, right? That's what we have right now. So let's talk about the king. You see to me, they look like oak leaves, but they're not. They're grape leaves. You see grapes all over the place. And that's indicative of his wealth. But you see, he's concerned with it. You see the ram's heads on his throne. He's holding a large pentacle in his left hand and a scepter in his right. You can barely see the castle in the background for all of the stuff growing up around him. He's only concerned about his own material security. He isn't concerned about the material security of the kingdom. For that, he needs the queen, and she's not here in this reading, is she? To try to say, look, dude, you can't do with it. You got to remember, people are hurting. People need something, right? We're in a virus. The pandemic is, still happening. It's like, what is it? They're averaging 1,000 people a day now that are becoming infected. In Oregon here, we have I said this yesterday, we have a fish packing plant on the coast, several locations. It's now closed because 100 people tested positive. 6 people in the county, unrelated, I guess, to the packing plant, or at least as far as we know, also tested positive. So it's spreading. So we had really, comparatively speaking, low numbers here in this state compared to other states, compared to Washington, California, certainly. But that may change now because we've opened things up and we haven't observed any kind of precautions to do it, really. Now, Costco's doing it. You can't go in there, I guess, without a mask on, and all their people in there are wearing them. So at least they're trying to contain this in a way that makes sense so that they can remain open. We can still go in, life can get back to some semblance of normal. But it's not going to for a while, not completely. And we don't know what the future is going to look like. Some people are reporting that they're recovered from it, but now they're having issues, all right? They're having physical problems from it. And so we don't know what life is going to look like a year from now. We just don't. And the precautions we take today can ensure a better future, but we're struggling with that still. Again, projective side of self versus receptive side of self. The projective side is winning for some people, and they're saying, oh no, I don't believe any of this. Well, there will come a point where they can no longer deny the truth. How many need to die, though, before that happens, before people work this out? That's the issue. And it's really the issue of a leader that's turned his back on the country, who can't say to the people that support him, hey, I'm going to wear a mask, you do too. Guess what would happen? They'd all be in masks, and we'd get through this. But oh no, not going to do that. I don't know. Instead, we're doing this. Hand reaches out from the cloud to a guy who's sitting with his back up against a tree, an oak tree. Instead of drawing strength from it, instead, he's having a bit of a pity party. You see 3 chalices on the ground. We don't know if there's anything in them because we can't see in. But whatever emotional abundance or strength or whatever you want to call that's there in front of him, whatever awareness, empathic awareness about what's really going on, he doesn't know. His legs are crossed, his arms are crossed. He's even wearing a cross on the front of his clothing there, isn't he? If you could see that whole thing. He's sitting in defense, and he can't see what's being offered. The cloud that the hand is reaching out from is not particularly dark, but he's not going to see it. He cannot see what's being offered. So you could look at this, on the other hand, you could look at it in terms of letting emotions settle and not being influenced by anything else. That's another way to see it. But there's no blindfold on him. He's just averting his eyes downward. So that's more of a choice not to see than one where you've bound up, like the 8 of Swords, where she's blindfolded, she's all bound up. You could think of that in terms of she's bound by her own thought processes, but on the other hand, she could be retreating into her still point and ignoring everything around her completely. The 2 of Swords, similar, blindfold on. But this guy's not wearing it, so that's why I say this is more of a choice to ignore what's being offered. But maybe things have just been too much. Maybe emotions have been too much. Maybe you don't trust what's being offered. So it could be that as well. And with the king who couldn't be bothered to even see your concerns, His only concern is to increase his own wealth, to stick it in the pocket, basically. Yeah. Life right now is just too much. And so the 4 could indicate respite from all of it. But let's talk about this one instead. Here we have a 2 of Pentacles. We see the water in the background. It's doing this like a biorhythm chart. You see a ship, a couple of ships, a bigger one and a smaller one. One rising up onto the peak and the other one rising down into the valley of the wave. We see, and that basically just denotes cycles, right? And here we have the lemniscate surrounding the 2 pentacles, one in each hand. The juggler standing on one foot, juggling a decision he needs to make. Does he re-engage? Does he let go of emotions that no longer serve and move confidently into interactions with others in a way that's empathic and respectful and compassionate and all those things? Or is he the king? Because in a way, you've got 2 kinds of no interaction with others here, right? You have 2 expressions here of people that cannot see anything other than their own. In the case of the king, his own riches. In the case of this man with his back up against the oak tree, we're going to do another card, I think. But in the case of that guy, he can't see what's being offered. Maybe what's offered is nothing. Maybe what's being offered is empty emotion. Maybe this is a direct result of the king's behavior, and you're just feeling bereft and lost and directionless. And so then with the 2 now, you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to decide, am I going to stay with this guy? Am I going to stay supporting him, or am I going to move on to something else? Because clearly he's not doing what he said he would do. He doesn't care about us. He only cares about his own self and about enriching himself and whoever he's beholden to, because that's the other aspect of this. When a king can't involve himself with the people, he's beholden to someone else. That's what's going on. Someone else is controlling him. And so whatever he's gaining for himself, he's also gaining for those people. Because you have to ask yourself, why would he not act? Why would the president of this country not act why did he not order PPE supplies and direct them to go to places until the middle of March, I read? March 12th or something like that. He knew about this back in 2019. He definitely knew about it at the beginning of January. We should have been acting then. Had we acted then, we would be in a different place now. Had he modeled the behavior that we all need to be doing, we would be in a very different place now. His people, his supporters would have seen the importance because they're guys doing it. But instead, we have people that are coming up to people in masks and coughing on them. Yeah, that's a crime. Did you know that if you go and you cough on somebody right now intentionally because you're mad and you're, pretending to give them the COVID, you could be asymptomatic and you could be giving it to them. You wouldn't even know it. You might simply be acting out, which again, what are you doing that for? People who do that get arrested now. It's a crime. You really want to go to jail for that? For being stupid and ignorant and short-sighted? Yeah, that's what that is. And people are being arrested for it. And rightly so. A former U.S. attorney came online just the other day and talked about it being both assault and battery. Define what both are, which helped me because I was always confused about that. But that it's assault at first. It's definitely an assault, okay? But apparently a case could be argued for battery as well. So don't be coughing on people like that. Don't be aggressive and hurtful and harmful, because that's just crap. And you're going to likely get arrested for it. Guarantee you cough on me, I'm going to have you arrested. I absolutely will. You aren't going to do that. See, this is crazy what's going on right now. It's just crazy. And if the King of Pentacles had done his due diligence, we would be in a very different place right now. But oh no, it's a hoax, remember? But don't you love this? This is so cool, all right? It was like the best thing I learned yesterday. They're hiring people, apparently, to wave signs, minority people to wave signs at this thing. That's fun. But the other fun part is that if you sign up to go, you have to sign a waiver that you won't hold him responsible or his campaign responsible if you contract the COVID. You know, that thing that's a hoax? Yeah, why do you have to sign a waiver if it's a hoax, folks? Why do you have to do that? You don't. You were duped by a con man. It was never a hoax, it's real. Sorry, it is. Let's do one more card. Okay, the answer, the Chariot. Seventh card of the Major Arcana. This is a complicated card. This is a king, all right? This one, he's a jerk. Somebody shouldn't be king. This guy, though, we'll assume that he's come back from somewhere, maybe battle, maybe this is just a celebration of maybe they've already come back from the battle, maybe, I don't know. But here he is in his chariot. He's got a big star on his crown. You see the Merkabahs on the cloth above him and behind him. You see the 4 moons. You see 2 crescent moons, 1 on each shoulder, and then his collar is the 3rd one implied. So triple aspects. You see the cube on his breastplate. That signifies the earth element and our structure and our material security. He's holding a scepter, a skew in his right hand. His left hand is empty. There are no reins. He's holding no reins, all right? No reins are visible. His lions, his little sphinxes down below, signify dark and light aspects of self, or the polarity within. You see the dreidel on the shield with the winged sun above. That's healing and balance. You see the, everything is at rest though, isn't it? You see the castle in balance in the background. Nothing obscures. He's there in front of it because he's its representative, not because he's enjoying the abundance stolen from the kingdom. 7 is about balance. It's, think the scales, and think the king being in the resting point in the middle. You've got 3, 3, and then the 4 position is here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so you can see the scales within that. And the king is really, what he's done here is he's come to rest. He's come to a trusting moment. The chariot is about movement. It's about progress. It's about balance. But it's also about knowing the difference when you need to resist and when you need to allow. And right now, the king is allowing, isn't he? In a sense, because he's so busy looking at his own stuff, in a sense, that's the energy of resistance. But here, he's letting things come to balance. He's letting things settle out. There's no barrier. There's a wall there, but there's no real barrier to obscure our vision or his from the kingdom. Everything is clear here. Soul comes in and says, well, you know, you've gotten yourself out of balance, Mr. King. You don't see your people anymore. Maybe you're in a pity party. You can't see what's offered. Or maybe this is the effect. Maybe this is a subject in his kingdom who realizes that there's nothing there for him, that it's all going to the king. And so he has to make a decision. Does he engage or does he allow? What does he do? Does he make a decision that gets rid of the king? Do they overthrow the king, basically? Now, we do that that we call that an election. We don't overthrow our presidents. We just, if we can impeach them, we do. If we can convince the people not to do something stupid and keep them there, well, then they generally go away early. But if not, like what we're experiencing now, obviously we're going to have to do this in November. And so maybe we'll end up with somebody like this who is there for us, who is there to stand tall for us and to bring balance and healing back to our world, back to our country. Or do we stick with this guy who's just concerned about himself and his own stuff at the exclusion of everything else? See, it has an effect. Whether this is the king having a pity party or whether this is us in complete and total confusion over what's going on here, and we don't trust anything anymore. So we got to sit down, we got to think about it. Think about the effect of this king. Then we make a decision. We get somebody new. I think that the problem here is that we're all tired. We're all this guy, okay? We've been through a lot. We are watching on a daily basis videos that show police harming American citizens, predominantly people of color. There's been a few out of, yeah, it's just not people of color. They're doing it to everybody. But right now, the situation regarding Black Lives Matter is so, look, that has to lead the moment. And I realize we're in a pandemic. We're dealing with a virus, but we're also dealing with the virus of racism. And until we understand that, I don't know. You know, and I think now, and maybe it's because it's the 22 year, but right now it feels different. It feels like something is taking hold. It's almost like a dam has burst and there's no way to put a plug in it now. And rightfully so, because quite frankly, it's shameful that we're here now and we didn't do this before. We didn't fix this before. We've all known. I mean, I honestly had no idea it was as widespread as it is, but I'm not surprised because of the militarization of the police. When that started happening, I thought, that's not going to end well. Sure enough. And I think it's that energy that's fueling all of this. It's turned this country and pitted the police against the citizens in a war of sorts, where it's okay to harm us. It's like, no, it isn't. There's no reason why anybody should be harmed. I saw this the other day, and listen, after I got my bachelor's in psychology, I went to work for a mental hospital. I wanted to see, I was going to get a master's and maybe a PhD, and then I got married, had kids, so I didn't do that. But I did work at a mental hospital for a while. It's no longer here in Oregon. I think they turned it into a women's prison eventually, but I think we were over here at the time, though. We weren't living over in the valley at that point, so I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But I worked there for about a year after I graduated from college, and somebody said on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, that how is it that psych aid staff or nursing staff or whatever, staff in a psych unit can stop somebody. And it can be dangerous. On a ward I worked, I had just come out of training, and one of the supervisory aides got hit upside the head with a pool cue and was in the hospital for about 5 weeks, recuperating. So, I mean, it can happen, that things can happen when you're trying to stop a combative patient. But how is it that psych staff can do that without killing them? Without beating them, because you can't do that. You have to restrain them in a way that preserves their dignity no matter what they're doing. How is it that we could do that and police can't? Ask yourself that, and then understand the real problem we're having. These are violent people that are in our police departments now, and they've got to be weeded out. This business of qualified immunity where we don't know who they are and they can go from one place to another. I read something yesterday where one guy, I think he's like in his early 30s, he couldn't have been a police officer for, luckily, maybe 10 years, 9 different departments in that time because of violence, excessive force stuff. 9 different departments. How is that allowed? I mean, it's like the Catholic Church and pedophile priests. They just move them around. That's what they used to do anyway. I don't know that they do that now, but that's what used to happen. You just move them around. Oh, well, just move them over there where he can offend over there. That's what we're seeing. That's the energy out there. That's what needs to be fixed, right? We can't have that here. It makes everybody, I don't care who you are, it makes everybody unsafe. And to see little children, when a policeman comes up, there was a female police officer drove up, and they were videoing it. The little girl, little black girl, raised her arms, started crying. And all the female officer was there to do was to ask her how things were going. There was no problem. But because of the climate, this is what's happening to our children now. They're afraid of people that they should be able to trust. We can't let that happen anymore. We can't let our babies experience this. The thought of growing up knowing that a police officer killed your father. How do you grow up that way? We can't let this is a disease. This is, for all that the COVID is, and it is, the disease of racism is so insidious and so intrinsic in the fabric of our country and our world. It can't be anymore. So, today's rune is I was. You can see laguz up and down there. The flow of spirit into form. We've forgotten who we are as extensions of the Creator. Aspects of the Creator focused into form for a short period of time to try to learn something and understand our shared connection together. And what I was is telling us is, hey, we can't forget that. This is who we are. We are spirit focused into form at every given moment. Without that process, without that energy coming into these bodies, the bodies wouldn't exist. No reason for them. It's the only reason we exist in the body is so that the spirit can have a place to go when it needs to come into form and do things and learn things. That's all it is. Now, today's geomancy rune, though, is Rubeus. And as you all know, if you remember, Rubeus is one of those three geomancy runes. Where's my pen? There it is. That if you draw it the first time out, you're supposed to destroy the reading. Oh my God. Because it's just too evil to continue. Well, Rubeus is Pure all grown up. All right, Pure is the little boy energy with lack of impulse control. Well, Rubeus is what it looks like when boy energy, masculine energy, male resonance cannot control itself and gets violent and out of control. All right. This is what's at stake right now. There's a lot of violence going on against people in this country by people that should know better and are tasked with serving and protecting. The militarization of our police department has likely given rise, or intensified at least, a problem that's existed forever. It didn't give rise to it. It's just, I should not say that. It's really just intensified it to such a level now that we actually have Secret Service that have admitted they shot pepper spray at the protesters. They were protesting peacefully in Lafayette Square just so the guy in the Oval Office can walk over and pretend to hold a Bible up. Okay? That's all that was. It was a photo op. There was no spirituality present. And the pastors that are looking on, the clergy that are looking on are saying, that's a perfect example of taking the Lord's name in vain. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm telling you, folks, what we have here is we have to make a decision about what's happening here to this country. How many, in other words, if you need to call the police on something, if something's happening and you have to call the police about it, are you going to? Are you afraid to? I am. I'm afraid to call the police about anything now. I don't know what that means. I don't think anybody does. But what I've seen them do, it's ridiculous. And now you have the DC National Guard that is reportedly demoralized because they were told they were supposed to act against citizens. And then we have the military called up to engage with citizens. All to make this guy happy? Do they not know that if he loses and when he loses, because he's going to, in November, that if he doesn't want to go, do they not know he's going to be dragged out of there? Again, we need to know when to take control and when to allow. And sometimes, the guy in charge needs to remember why he's there. It's not to act like this, but it's to treat everybody with respect and dignity, in balanced energy exchange with all. It's the difference between an egalitarian leader and someone who's authoritarian and a dictator. They don't care what the rest of the people want. They don't care if they live or die. As long as the money goes into their pockets, they don't care. They're there for themselves. They're not there for the people. Very different appearance here between one leader and the next. So I guess today that's what this is about. This is about how are we going to deal with projective energy that's getting in the way of everything. And a decision's going to have to be made. Maybe we take time out and we think about it for a bit, but we don't want to take too long. We want to make a decision. It needs to be based in balance. He may be holding the one up in his right hand, the one pentacle up in his right hand higher, but his focus is on the receptive. So does ours. We need to understand that instilling fear in people as a means of control is not going to do it. Whatever charge they're getting out of it, because they are, that can't be allowed to happen. The idea of a policeman as militarized is crazy. These were supposed to be peace officers. And I hope that in the future here, in a not too distant future, that we're going to shift the focus of the police into more community service officers. And sure, if there's a reason that we need them to get out the weapons and because there's a serious thing going on and lives are at stake, sure. But as they militarize, everything ratchets up around them. It's almost like water seeking its own level. The energy is going to rise to that. You take it away, the energy goes down. So, at minimum, that's what needs to happen. Demilitarize the police. Shift it to a more community focus, community service officer focus. And take all of this You know, take the AR-15s out, take the military stuff, take the tanks off the streets. I mean, obviously, if you're going to a sniper situation, you're going to need something, but did we need all of this? I don't think so. And it changed the mindset. You had people coming back from the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, and maybe they become police officers. They haven't transitioned from the battlefield, so they take that energy into their policing. Could that be what we're seeing? At least some of it. So you see how everything has ratcheted up. So it's no wonder we're where we are. But the positive side of it is that it's no wonder where we are. And now it's in our faces so much we have to do something now, don't we? The outrage has become so much that it's taken on a life or a momentum of its own, and now we have to do something, and we are. So I guess that's it. You know, the rubious energy of the king needs to be transmuted into spirit, and having spirit take the reins, spirit take control, so that we can figure out where we need to go together. And instead of just feeling like we just don't want to engage at all, make the decision to allow spirit to inform the process and to inform ego. Letting go of the lack of impulse control and the unrestrained catalytic fire energy that is harming people now. So I guess that's it. Not too bad for a Monday. But in any event, thanks so much for watching. Come back tomorrow, please. I'd love you to do that. Click subscribe and check out the blog. Correspondences are going to go up. Again, check out the Esoteric Influences, the other video I just did. Check out that. I might do a checking in video. I don't know. We'll see how it goes today. It's kind of raining here right now, so I'm not going to be out much. I do have to go out, though, and check in on the greenhouses and see how they're doing. But other than that, I don't know what we're doing today. But, oh, well, we have irrigation here in about, I don't know, at 11:15, so we're going to have to do that. But ours lasts from this time on Monday until 8 a.m. on Friday, so we've got our flood irrigation time, and so we flood irrigate our property, so got to move water around. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.